Hey guys, and welcome back to another video on the Lola Michelle Creative YouTube channel. In this video, we're going to be talking about how to start a budget and walking through my November budget together. So hopefully the lighting isn't too bad in this video. I'm playing with a few things. I hope not to be recording on this webcam forever. We do have other great cameras. This is just the best that I can do in this time frame. And I also really like this microphone, and I don't have an off-camera microphone for our professional cameras, so we're just gonna work with this from now and go with it. Leave a comment down below. Let me know, how do you think, let me know if the lighting is any better. I know last video it was hard to see my eyes because of the glare on the screen, but unfortunately I need my glasses to see, so hopefully this is a little bit better. So yeah, in this video we're going to go ahead and talk about how to start a budget, the few steps that you need to take before even getting into putting a budget together, and then also we're going to take a look at our own November budget together using my template, which I have put together and I'm sharing for you guys. You can grab it on Etsy at the link down below for just a few dollars. And it also comes with a video going through how to use it, a PDF that breaks down a lot of the information that we talked about today, and obviously the template itself so that you can start putting this into practice. Okay, so the very first step to budgeting is really knowing why you're putting a budget together, why your financial goals are what they are, is exactly what is going to keep you motivated to keep following through every day, week, month, and year with your budget to make them come true. Our whys are a lot of things, but ultimately it comes down to never being at that place where we file bankruptcy. It also comes down to building financial wealth for our family, our potential children, grandchildren, and the line beyond that. And for me, a lot of that comes down to finding security in our retirement. I don't want to work until I'm 80, hopefully. So I'm hoping that building retirement allows us some freedom when it comes to our golden years. But you need to figure out what that why is for you. And it's okay if that why evolves and changes as you get older and your money gets older and your wealth gets larger. It is absolutely okay for that to change. And ultimately, it probably should change. But what is your why right now? Is your why have to do with your kids? Does it have to do with your retirement? Does it have to do with just being able to breathe when it comes to looking at your bills and not being behind on anything? What is your why? And before you get started on any budget, you need to find out what. The next thing you need to do is you need to figure out what budgeting template or vehicle you want to use. There are so many different options out there. There are apps that you can pay for. There are templates like the one that I am using and the one that I will link down below. There are paper methods that people use, cash envelopes. There are so many different options. You need to figure out which one works best for you, and that might be a trial and error situation. For instance, I personally don't like the apps, and that doesn't mean that they're bad. It just means that for me, two things. One, I don't want to pay an annual fee or a monthly fee to manage my finances when I can do it at no cost to myself. But additionally, I think that some of them can take you from being an active participant in your budget, and to me it streamlines too much, which allows for errors. In the past years, I've used apps like Mint or Every Dollar or what's another one, YNAB, which is youneedabudget.com. You can check all of those out. And because some of them kind of automate your transactions coming in from your bank accounts, and they can put themselves in different categories, I would just step away from it. and I wasn't actively working on it. I wasn't actively checking my budget. I would just come back at the end of the month and be like, "Wow, really spent on groceries this month," or "I really, went to Bath and Body Works too many times this month," or whatever. Instead of actively checking in and having to be a participant and having to decide what those transactions really meant. So you need to find a budget template or a vehicle for budgeting that works best for you. All right, now that you have found that budgeting vehicle, the steps from here on out are going to be, they could be slightly different depending on how you're going to categorize things, depending on the vehicle that you're using. But from here on out, I'm specifically going to be talking about the budget that I use, but many of these tips can be used for other options as well. So, what I do from here before I input any information into the Excel spreadsheet or the Google Sheets spreadsheet is break down your financial situation. So, what does that mean? That means that you're going to break down your monthly income. I recommend budgeting your guaranteed income or your mostly guaranteed income versus things like bonuses or overtime or possible income that's coming in. Uncle Tim could be paying you back $500 or he could not. I would not account for that money until it hits your bank. There are often times in the summer months specifically that my husband gets a lot of overtime, and even into the fall actually. But I don't really account for that overtime once it comes in and I am actively working on my budget, which I do multiple times a week, if not daily sometimes. I will go ahead and attribute those funds to either a debt category or a savings category or, extra spending that we might do because we have the influx of income. But I'm never accounting for money that isn't a pretty sure thing. So that's what I would suggest first. And then you're going to break down your expenses. And I break them down into 5 categories. So fixed, flexible, and fun. So fixed expenses are going to be expenses that don't really change much. Most of them have exact due dates. They're going to be things that come out likely once a month, like your rent, your utilities, any kind of insurances that you might have, anything that is a fixed expense and doesn't change much. I know some of like your utilities might change a few dollars here and there depending on the season, or if you have 30 people staying at your house for a few days, the water bill might go up, but it's generally a fixed expense that isn't going to change in the big grand scheme of things. Next is your flexible expenses. So these are going to be things like your gas, your groceries, things that happen some months versus others. So maybe it's like a dog grooming or other categories I will show you once we get to my budget and how I organize that. But the due dates are likely, they might not have due dates like groceries and gas, or if they do, they might be something that is slightly more flexible. And then the fun or bonus category. So these are going to be things like personal spending, vacation spending, house spending, things that are kind of frivolous, I would say, or above everything else. And they're also things that would be the first to be cut should you need to cut back on your spending. So things like shopping or personal spending, beauty and hair, these things. As much as I don't want to cut out getting my nails done, it would be one of the first things I would cut if I needed to make my income stretch further or go towards things that are more important. Your debt, you're going to go ahead and write down all of your debt, the total balance of that debt, any due date and minimum payment that you have, and you're going to want to do that for each one of those debts that you may have. And then lastly, you're going to break down your savings. So these are going to be, first off, any savings that you already have. That might just be a lump sum that you have somewhere, or it might already have a goal attached to it, like let's say you're working on a down payment on a house. You might say that all of your savings is going towards that. You need to jot that down. And Further than that, you need to discuss either with yourself or with your partner what are some goals, what are some financial situations that we would like to be more prepared for in the next year, in the next 3 years, in the next 5 years. So, short term goals might look something like Christmas or birthdays or a small sinking fund or savings fund for health expenses, things that you may be pulling from over the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months. And then you're going to have things like larger savings. So that might be things like a down payment on a house, things like buying a car, larger expenses that you probably won't touch for a year or more. That would also be something like your emergency savings as well. And in the PDF that you can download with the spreadsheet, I talk a lot more about what that breakdown might look like, and you can also see that when we look at my budget here in a minute. Okay, so once you've gone ahead and collected all of that information, I'm going to show you how you're going to go ahead and put it into the budgeting template. Let's go. Okay, so here we are looking at the annual view of my spreadsheet. And then if we click this tab here, you will see the monthly view of the spreadsheet. Like I said, I have a whole video that comes with the spreadsheet that goes over exactly how to customize this, but we are going to go over some information in this video as well. I'm going to go ahead. These numbers here are just some numbers that I plugged in. I will go over my real November budget with you here shortly, but I just want to go over a few more things before I do that. So per the previous instructions at the beginning of the video, we talked about collecting your base income for each month. So maybe you're on salary and your income looks the same every month. Maybe it fluctuates because you get paid weekly, and some months are 5 weeks and some months are 4 weeks. Or 4 paychecks, 4 or 5 paychecks, I should say. Maybe you have a summer job that, like May through August, maybe you do swimming, teach swimming, or do swimming lessons or something like that, and you have some income specifically for that. And then we're going to talk about this sinking funds category here in just a moment. Then down here comes your 3 categories that we talked about: fixed, flexible, and fun. You're going to write them out here and put in the amounts in these categories. The cool thing about the, well, there's a few things that's cool about the annual view is you can see what you're spending annually on a specific category, or you can also see how much debt you're paying off here, or you can see how much you'd be saving for the year here. So I think it's really motivating to lay everything out on the annual spreadsheet before moving into your monthly breakdown. This is also a good place for things like your savings. Let's take a look at a category like Christmas here. If you wanted to make sure that you were going to have a specific amount by the end of the year, you can see that here. So if you know that on average you spend $500 or $600 on gifts, you have to travel, and you want some decorations, you want to make sure that that's all going to be covered here. So maybe you want to look at what you spent last year and use that as a goal. So that is the annual spreadsheet. I'm also going to go back up to here and just talk a little bit about sinking funds here. So whenever you pull money from these savings funds, so the purpose of some of these funds is going to be able to use them to be able to use them as you need them. For instance, Christmas, you may start shopping in October, November, December, right? It might not be just to use in December. Dog care, you may have your annual visit in April here, so you might need to use some of that money. Gifts and birthdays, you're probably going to use that a few times a year. Back to school, or maybe your child's sporting events, those you might use in the middle of the year, and so on. So anytime you're pulling money out of these accounts, you are going to put it in this sinking funds because it's technically going to be income. If you, let's for instance, go back down to your car insurance, if you pay that every 6 months, for instance, here I have $340. If you pay that premium every 6 months and you are pulling money out of your sinking funds, but you're not showing that anywhere, the balance between what you brought in and what what went out is not going to match up because technically that $340 was an income in your bank statement because you pulled it out of your savings. Unless hypothetically you are keeping all of your funds in your checking account, including those savings categories, but I don't suggest that. Oh, excuse me, a little itch. So you want to make sure that's being accounted for as your income so that the $340 from here that you may have used if you didn't have that money to pull out of your sinking funds can go towards something else. Additionally, I want to mention, so once you put in all of your base prices, this is going to be your debt. So these are all your minimum payments for the year. This is an example of, again, these aren't our real numbers quite yet, but this is an example of maybe this is a $500 debt. So you know you're going to be done paying it in May. So it's going to drop off and you can use that $100 elsewhere. But once you go all the way to the bottom, these numbers are going to reflect the numbers because this isn't negative. This is going to reflect the amount of money that you have not budgeted. I would say the people that I have helped with their budget, oftentimes, not every time, so if you don't fit into this category, that's okay, but oftentimes they have a surplus down here. And that means that they can use this money, any of these dollar amounts for that month, to go towards paying off their debt faster, to go towards saving up on a specific category faster. But one of the other lessons that I want you to take from that is that this number here, so this is $6,769, that's the total of all of these that you had left over. Likely, this is going to be the amount of money, and it's probably more than that because if prior to this you didn't have any of these savings categories, this is likely the amount of money that you were using on items that weren't likely serving you and your financial goals. So because there was no accountability for this money, this was money that went to maybe extra fast food, extra eating out, shopping on Amazon, quickly running into IKEA or Target, or any other Sephora, any other spending that you weren't keeping track of. This is likely money that you were throwing away. So this is kind of the fun part. You can now go in here and say, okay, for January, this is all my minimal payments, all my savings goals are taken care of. I can take that $194 and add it to anything that's important to me. So maybe your top goal right now, other than these savings, is to pay off these credit cards. Okay. So maybe you come up here and you're going to add that $194 right to, I think that's $244. Yes. You're going to add that $194, to this credit card payment here because you want to get that paid off faster. That's your number one priority. You have $324 here. So maybe I'm going to go ahead and add that to, and maybe now you'll see this is zero. You want to see this. You want every dollar to be accounted for. So maybe that means that you have paid off this credit card, right? Maybe there was a $600 or $700 balance and you thought it was going to take you the rest of the year, but you've gone ahead and paid it off. So you can actually Remove these payments. And now you have even more money down here to budget. So you're going to want to go based on your priorities every month here. And then once you're done, you're going to take a look at this right-hand side because it gets really exciting. Or at least for me, maybe I'm the only nerdy one, but this is what I mean. This is not somebody who brings in 6 figures a year. This is somebody who through their family, again, I just made up these numbers, but they bring in $63,000 a year with 2 sources of income. A little small summer job here, that's only $1,200. And then this is just sinking funds. So they are not, this is a middle class family here. So just what you see here, they have saved, $18,245, or that is their goal at least. And likely I would see that number go up once we talked about these numbers here at the bottom. So let's go ahead and take a look at, after you take care of this, how does that move into your monthly view? All right, so here we are looking at the monthly view. So what you're going to do now that you've done all the work and laid all of your bills out over here in the annual view, is you're just going to take those numbers. This says November, so it would be these numbers here because you've already done the work. And you're just going to simply bring those numbers here. The income that you planned out, again, it may fluctuate by the end of the month depending on bonuses or overtime, etc. But we're just going to put what we planned on. And then you're going to put all those bill amounts right here, all of your flexible spending, all of your bonus fund spending, what you're budgeting for, those minimal payments, or the extra that you plan on spending here. Now the added bonus here on the monthly section is you're going to see the current balance and then the end of month balance. So if I make that payment like I'm supposed to be, this balance moves down. Credit card, if I move that down. Now this might be slightly different because you may have to take into account interest, but it will likely give you a good idea of what your balance is going to be. And then here for your savings, you have a starting balance that you had at the beginning of the month. And if you reach all of your goals and you move all of your money that you're supposed to for savings, you're going to see that balance went up, right? So you went from $61.76 down here to $8,053 at the end of the month, which is super exciting. So once you do all that and you go ahead, and the other piece of information that's on here is your due dates as well. This is going to be helpful because it allows you to know which paycheck you're going to use to pay it, right? So if your mortgage is due, let's say it's due the end of the month. It's usually due on the 1st, but most people make sure they pay it by the end of the month, so it's posted by the 1st. Then you're going to split, you might make one payment at the end of the month. So this paycheck, November 27th, depending on if that works for you. Or like for me, myself, I break our mortgage up into 2 sections. So 2 of my paychecks, because for my job specifically, I get paid bi-weekly. So I break that up. And for those 2 weeks, I break our mortgage in half so that it's not coming, sucking up, the majority of a paycheck or something like that. So once you put all of your due dates in here, then you can go ahead and move those bills and plan out your weekly paychecks, whether you get paid once a month, the 1st and the 15th, or every week. That's why there's 5 up here, because sometimes there are 5 paychecks, or every other week. And maybe sometimes you get 2 paychecks, maybe sometimes you get 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and move over to our personal budget, and we'll talk about what that looks like.